Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about the Williamson County Animal Center. We've been missing seeing you because of COVID-19. Some things have been restricted, but we're back and we're happy to bring you an update on everything that's going on at the shelter, direct from our director, Ondrea Johnson. Good morning, Ondrea.
Good morning, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
It's been a crazy couple of months with COVID-19, and it affected everyone in our community and what we should and shouldn't do. We've all learned a lot, I think, about virus transmission. But back in mid-March, it became evident that we were going to have to restrict visits from the public to the shelter and figure out a plan to take care of our animals. So I think everybody's now familiar with the term essential versus non-essential.
Yes.
So tell us about where does the shelter fall into that, and how did we cope in the beginning back in March?
Oh gosh, you know, things have changed so quickly. The beginning of March seems like 18 months ago in some ways. So in the very beginning, we were really fortunate that, you know, everyone in the whole community was sort of understanding and understood what we were going through, and we had sort of a mass emptying of the shelter. All of our animals, for the most part, went out into foster care, and for the first time in at least many, many years, our kennels were completely empty. And some people may have seen that video that we posted on our website of the empty kennels, and it was kind of eerily quiet when you would come into the shelter. But I would say one of the things that has been a positive from all of this is the animals getting to be in homes. So we made that sort of transition pretty quickly, and we went to adopting our animals out via appointment. You could and still can view all of our animals on our website and then fill out an application, and someone from the shelter will call to make an appointment for you. And so it's going to be interesting, Debbie, when we transition back into full time, because there's a lot of talk in the sheltering community about trying to continue at least some of this fostering shelter, you know, community sheltering type of thing. And there have been some real positives that have come from it.
Now, at the time we put our animals into sheltering, there weren't that many dogs in the shelter. We were sort of in a lull.
We were.
In both the dog and the cat population in the shelter. So all of those dogs went to people who had applied for our foster program.
Right.
So tell us, how does that work? How does someone qualify to be a foster, and what do they have to do when they have the animal at home?
So you just go online. There's a foster application on our website, and of course Brooke Robbins, our foster coordinator, she pretty much knows at any given time what animal is in what home, and she's pretty much answers her phone anytime you call. She's a great support for our fosters. And so, you know, we had everything in foster, from dogs who could not be with other dogs and they went to live in homes where they hadn't had a dog before, down to bottle-fed kittens. And so we sort of had a little bit of everything. We still are in need of fosters. We really would like for the public to still consider fostering. As I said, we'd love to be able to continue, at least for some of our residents, to be able to go into foster rather than having to stay at the shelter. Yeah. It can be a really stressful experience for certain animals to be in the shelter environment. So the more fosters we have, the more options we have for what we can provide to each individual animal.
And they've had a great time living in somebody's house.
Right.
For this 6 to 8 week period, rather than being at the shelter with limited staff, with no volunteers. Because there's some things we just had to do right off the bat was to cut down on the number of volunteers coming in the building. The dogs that go to foster, like you said, sometimes we have a dog that we think, no other dogs, and lo and behold, some volunteer will take them home and they'll integrate well with their pack and their home. So we do learn a lot.
Absolutely. I think it helps the public, honestly, when a dog has been in foster, even if it is only a short-term foster, to sort of visualize that animal in their home. So, you know, this cat likes to sleep all the time. You know, this cat's very playful and will climb your curtains. This dog loves kids. this dog's a couch potato. So it really does tell us a lot more about what it's like to live with that animal than we just don't have the ability to know that from the shelter.
Or the other biggie, the dog didn't give 2 cents about the cat.
Right.
So we learned that the cat and the dog could cohabitate.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And that's hard to tell in the shelter because they're separated all the time.
Exactly.
And it's exciting when they get out of their kennel and they're not on their best behavior at the shelter. They're hyper to get out, and then they hit the low points of not getting out. So it's not a typical day in the life of a family. So you mentioned that the bottle-fed kittens. So this is kitten season.
Yes.
There are no kittens at the shelter. There are a few,
right?
But there are 100 or more at foster homes, and that's a special kind of person that does kitten fostering, because many of them don't have the mother cat,
right?
And they have to feed them replacement formula by bottle.
Yes, and in the beginning, they have to be fed every 2 hours.
Wow.
So our bottle feeding fosters are extremely dedicated. I mean, these mostly ladies, some men as well, but this crew of people get up every 2 hours in the night to feed these kittens, just as if it were an infant. So it is a labor of love, and these folks, you know, they follow their kittens after they get into adoption, and it really does kind of create a community. And I would say that our bottle baby fosters, as we call them, is probably one of the tightest knit communities at the shelter.
I don't doubt it. And they constantly are in need of the food, the litter, the powdered milk replacement. So there are lots of supplies that we provide them that people can help us out with. Some of them are pretty special. I mean, powdered formula and certain types of cat food are very particular for kittens, because it's hard when they're, and we get them at a couple of days old sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. We get a lot of kittens that really probably in many instances there is a mother still out there, but folks find kittens. I mean, one scenario that comes to mind is a litter of kittens that was found under a bush in someone's backyard, and they waited for the mom to come back, and she did not, and they brought us the 3 kittens. So those kittens were only a couple of days old, so there are very particular things that their bodies can digest. And then, of course, as they start to get older and they can eat kibble, they have to have a certain size kibble. It has to be really small. So each bottle baby foster goes home with about $300 worth of supplies just from the very beginning. And then, of course, we have to resupply them, restock them with those supplies as they deplete them. So it is quite an endeavor to take in.
And then there's the medical side. Sometimes these kittens that are born outdoors are subjected to other germs and things, and they come in with watery, crusty eyes and upper respiratory and intestinal issues. So we've got to give them vet care as well. Yeah, so the fosters get that. They come back when the kittens are sick, they need a consultation, or they need a shot or dewormer and all that. So being a foster doesn't necessarily cost you a lot of money. It's, like you said, a labor of love.
It is.
It's a time-intensive.
It is.
But fun, and if people discover it, they really latch onto it, and they just can't stop doing it. They
seem to love it, and all of our kitten fosters in the beginning, kitten season started here in Tennessee a little bit late this year for some reason. It normally, beginning of March, we're usually slammed with kittens, as you know, but for some reason we didn't start getting kittens really till the beginning of April. And all of those kitten fosters were clamoring for kittens. When am I getting kittens? When am I getting kittens? So,
well, that's a two-sided issue, because we wish there weren't a lot of little kittens born out in the wild that have nobody to care for them. So here we are, nearing around the 1st of June, and we're getting kittens back because they're now 8 weeks old is the criteria. And 2 pounds,
2 pounds
to be spayed or neutered, which is part of what we do. And animals don't go out the door at our shelter without that. So cats, and the reason for that is that kittens can actually reproduce as young as 4 months.
Right.
So people don't realize that.
Right.
Early intervention is the key.
It is.
And that's part of, it leads me into our community cat program, which we had a little hiatus from during the COVID restrictions, but now we're back on course with that, and we have free spays and neuters for any outdoor cat in Williamson County.
Right.
So that program is now striving to, and it's really in its second year. Last year, I think we did 1,400 cats.
Somewhere around there.
Were sterilized during that program. So if a cat comes in through the community cat program, what do they get from our shelter?
So when the cat comes in, they are through that program, and that's any, as you said, outdoor cat or indoor cat that spends any amount of time outside. So if citizens have a cat that is their baby and their house cat and they love it, but they let it go out onto, the porch to get sun for a couple of hours a day, that cat still is at risk for reproducing another litter. So we will spay and neuter any cat that spends any amount of time outside. If you come in through our community cat program, it is a completely free program. Your cat will receive a spay or neuter, a rabies shot, and an ear tip. Now, ear tip is something that is starting to be more understood in the community, but it is something we get a lot of questions about. An ear tip is a universal sign that a cat has been spayed or neutered. So if you see a cat out in your community that has a little tip cut off of its left ear, you know that cat has a caregiver, you know that it has been taken care of, and you can leave that cat alone. You do not need to try to catch the cat and bring it to us. It has a caregiver, someone knows it's there, and it has been spayed or neutered. And it's really important for people to understand as we move towards, nationally, we're moving towards tipping the ears of any cat that spends time outside. It's really important for citizens to realize the importance of that, because many times people would pick up someone's cat and bring it to us, and we had no way of knowing that there was someone to care for the cat. So we would basically adopt someone's cat out to another family. And so this is a movement that it's not something that we came up with. We didn't create it. It's across the country in shelters, really across the world. It's Best Friends and Maddie's Fund and Alley Cat Allies, and all of these national organizations recognize this practice, and it really has made a huge difference in the health of our cat population.
How many unowned community cats do you think there are in Williamson County?
I believe the number that Sam showed to me is around 50,000. It's actually a problem that a lot of citizens don't realize we have here. And with all of the construction and development in the county, the cats that have lived in feral colonies out in the woods, around farms and whatnot, and they've lived there for generations and gone largely unnoticed. Those cats are starting to sort of be pushed out of those locations, so more people are starting to see them in rural areas that are now being developed. People are starting to notice cats that they didn't notice before, and I've had several calls about people, we're building a new home and there's a homeless cat in my area, or multiple homeless cats, and people are trapping those cats and bringing them to us. So it is a problem that people don't realize, and we want to make sure that those cats are cared for. We want to make sure they are vaccinated and that they cannot reproduce, and then they are allowed to live their life in their outdoor home where they have been living for generations, and they have already been making a living on their own.
They've had a food source.
They have a food source, right?
And there are varying degrees of this whole program. There's
Absolutely.
a feral cat, which is totally unsocialized, that couldn't be picked up and wouldn't come near you. Those are the ones we recommend people rent a trap for. Get some advice how to trap it.
Absolutely.
Which is basically don't feed it for a whole day if you're feeding.
Right.
Because a lot of people are just out of the kindness of their heart will say, well, I've got a couple of cats, I've been feeding at night. Well, how many? Well, 12.
Right.
You know, I've been putting the food out. So you become a caretaker, and part of the job of the citizen is to take that caretaking one more step and stop the reproduction.
Absolutely.
So I encourage everybody to be part of the solution.
Yes.
Because the more people that come here, the more community or stray cats we're going to have.
Right.
They're going to be displaced. People see them every day, and not just on the farms. They see them in urban areas.
They do.
We've seen them in downtown Franklin. Somebody feeding 20 or 30, putting out food every night.
Absolutely.
So, if they're not spayed and neutered, cats are prolific in reproduction, and they can have litters every 4 months.
Right.
From the time they're 4 months old, they can become a mother. So it's important, and you think every one of those kittens doesn't get spayed or neutered, and it's sort of an astronomical number.
It's thousands of offspring that one cat can produce in just a very short period of time. And here in Tennessee, because cats reproduce by temperature, you know, the outside temperature. So here in Tennessee, we typically have a 3-litter season. So one cat can have up to 3 litters, and a typical litter size is 5 kittens. So you do the math, one cat can produce 15 offspring every year, and then all of her offspring can do the same. Another thing that even if you're not concerned with the overpopulation of cats, if you have cats hanging around your house or your apartment, if they're unspayed and unneutered, that's when you get the spraying, the calling, the fighting. Once you change that reproductive cycle, those nuisance behaviors largely go away. So it's helpful just for the peace of the community to have those cats spayed and neutered. And of course, they're much healthier. They don't have they're not prone to as many cancers and different things once they're spayed and neutered. And they're vaccinated for rabies. We give them a 3-year rabies vaccination, and their health is checked, and we make sure they're healthy and able to return to wherever they were, so that they're not spreading diseases that they might be carrying to other cats. So, you know, there are a lot of benefits to getting those cats taken care of and then letting them live their life where they were.
I don't think people realize that this spay and neuter does all of that.
Right.
That it actually changes some of the annoying mating behaviors, that we hear that sound that sounds like a baby crying outside.
It does, right.
And the male cat being neutered is just as important as spaying the females.
Absolutely.
So people should remember that. And it's hard to tell from a distance whether a cat's a male or female.
It is.
So just look for that ear tip. If it's not ear tipped, bring it in.
Right.
And we'll check it out. If it happens to have been spayed or neutered already, we'll find that out.
Right.
And we'll discover which sex it is and give it the appropriate vaccinations. So we're doing that at the shelter. Mostly, we're having large clinics for the community cats on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Right.
And for the folks in Fairview, we're actually going out there and picking up their cats on Tuesdays. Throughout the month of June. So that's a fun program. We call it the Snip and Tip Taxi.
Yes.
So if you see a van in the parking lot of the Fairview Rec Center on a Tuesday morning, wonder what that is. Look into it.
Yes, we're giving the cats a ride back to the shelter. They get chauffeured and then delivered back to their owners in the afternoon after the surgery's done. And we do that right now just out in Fairview. It's at the rec center, as you said. It's every Tuesday. And you know, the more popular it becomes, maybe we'll try some other locations, but we're sort of testing it out starting in Fairview. So
right, because we want to give everyone the best opportunity we can, and it is just a long drive from out there. So if you just have to drop them off at the rec center, pick them back up that afternoon, it's convenient. And people need to call the shelter. Of course, that is a situation where you need to make a appointment or a reservation to be part of that.
Absolutely. You know, we want to make sure that we have the ability and the capacity to care for your cat if it gets dropped off with us, and we know roughly how many spay and neuter surgeries we can do in a day. And, you know, we'd love to hear from people if there are things that we could do to accommodate and make it easier for them. I mean, we really want to help people get these cats spayed and neutered. And Debbie, we have a few days this summer where we will also be able to spay and neuter some dogs in the community. We don't have very many slots, but I do want people to know that's something that we're trying to open up to the community, because we know there are dogs who really need to be spayed and neutered as well. And we want people to see us as a resource. We want to help them take care of their pet and keep their pet in their home and not have unwanted litters of dogs or cats.
And they can also call the shelter and talk about the slots for dogs and what.
Right.
Okay. One of the things you implemented when you came to the shelter was managed intake. And that's a term that is sort of an industry term for the shelter, but tell us what managed intake means.
So it's just pretty much as it says. We manage the number of animals that are going to be coming through the door every day, so that we know we have space, we know we have an open kennel, we know that we have the ability to care for the number of pets that we have in the shelter in an appropriate way. Of course, you can still bring a stray. If you find a stray, you don't have to have an appointment for that. One thing that I'm hoping we can continue, though, that we began during COVID, we implemented something we called straycation, where, you know, how if you take some days off from your job and you stay home, you have a staycation. Well, we've asked people to hold. There's a 5-day legally in the Williamson County. We have to hold animals or dogs in particular for 5 days to see if someone comes forward to claim that dog. So we've had really great success with the citizens holding the animal for 5 days and then bringing it to us, so that it doesn't sit in the shelter for an additional 5 days. It comes in, it goes straight onto the adoption floor, or it goes immediately to get its spay-neuter surgery, and then it's adoptable the next day. And that has reduced the length of stay. As you know, Debbie, that's something we report on to all of our granting agencies, is our length of stay in shelter. So if we could cut out that 5-day stray hold, we've reduced our length of stay with something that's not very drastic and pretty easy to do. So if you find a stray animal, we want you to fill out a found animal form. Our intake coordinator, Christina Barta, she does a great job of reaching out to everyone who fills out those forms. We get that animal registered and listed as found. And then if no one comes to claim it, you have an appointment on that 5th day to bring it back to the shelter. So that's sort of a new thing that we're doing with managed intake. But for the owner surrenders, we are asking and have been asking for over a year now for people to make an appointment to surrender their pet. You know, the reason that we do that, as I said, is we want to be able to give your pet the best possible care. We want to be able to house them appropriately and with enough space. And we want to make sure that they're adopted as quickly as possible. And the way we do that is not to overcrowd our kennels, and we don't, you know, we try to make sure that we have a manageable number at any given time.
And we've also started having lengthy conversations with people who call and say they need to surrender their animal, because many times a situation is an emotional situation, or they're moving, or something's changed in their own life, or they can't afford the food. So there are many of those scenarios are behavior problem. We will give them advice. Hook them up with a behaviorist. Hook them up with free, and we don't want anybody to not be able to feed their pet, and we have a pet food bank for that.
Absolutely.
So to try to discuss with that person where they really are and get to the root of what the problem could be. And with a cat, sometimes it's real simple. It's like a behavior issue with the litter box, and you give them a little advice, and they figure out they can keep the cat at home, and it's not that big a deal. So I think that's wonderful that we're doing that program, and we're actually talking people through what are the issues, because people don't want to part with their pets.
No, for the most part. And touching on that subject, though, Debbie, I do want to say that, you know, we understand that sometimes there's really just no other option. We will help people keep their pets if it's an option at all. We have resources for what housing facilities allow pets. I mean, we have a wealth of resources that we can give to people, but if you reach a point where you absolutely cannot keep your pet, and there are no other options, we want people to feel comfortable coming to us. We want to kind of shed that image of the pound. And we want you to know that we are implementing programs, new programs every year to be able to better serve the pet community.
Well, and I think the positive outcomes are our goal. And we will find a home for that pet where it, you know, that it can flourish. So
absolutely.
That's what I tell people. It's okay. We know this happened in your life, but this is a great place, and we have people waiting. You know, we've been taking applications online. We have like 200 people. Where are the puppies? You know, where are the kittens? So we're glad to get back into the business of opening the front doors and letting people in.
We are.
I do want to update our viewers that if you're interested in the free spay neuter for any outdoor cat, please call the shelter at 790-5590 and ask for Sam Anderson. Samantha, she's at extension 1823. She'll talk you through the situation. She'll make your appointment, and that'll be one less cat out there reproducing. We will be doing a monthly rabies and microchip clinic again on Saturday, June 27th at the shelter from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. That is our monthly clinic. We offer rabies shots for $10 and a microchip for $15. And we've reunited animals as far as a year apart from their owner just because of the microchip. So be sure your information's up to date on your microchip. If you need help with that, you can call the shelter. We can tell you the company. You go on their website and update your phone number. We've had instances where animals are microchipped, but the information's wrong. So we don't want that to happen to your pet. You can get that on Saturday, June 27th if you'd like, and we'd love to see you there. Just bring your dogs on a leash or cats in carriers. And we will be closed on July 4th for the holiday, and we encourage you to take extra precautions that day through that whole weekend because there will be lots of fireworks, and they scare dogs to a huge degree, and they scare cats as well. So be sure to keep your animals secured on July the 4th and 5th that weekend. There's sure to be fireworks in the community. If you'd like to find out the latest about our hours, what animals are available for adoption, what the adoption procedure is, go to our Facebook page and friend us. Williamson County Animal Center is what it's under, or our website, adoptwcac.org. You can see pets there, and it links to petfinder.com, where you can look for any pet that you want, and we hope you find one at our shelter. I want to thank Ondrea Johnson, our director, for coming today, for keeping us up to date, Ondrea. And we're looking forward to another great summer.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll need a kitten adopters very soon.
Yes. Come get a kitten.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Pet Watch, and we'll see you next time.